Hey guys, this is Umar Khan. Today I'm going to talk about some statistical analysis that I did on the Northwind traders dataset. So the first question that we asked was, customers were offered varying levels of discounts on certain items. And what we were interested in trying to figure out was that, when we gave a discount on a product, did it increase the quantity ordered of the product? And we found out that, offering a discount on the product, it did have a statistically significant effect on the quantity of items ordered. But the effect was small. We saw a Cohen's D value of 0.286, which is considered small. So then, we went ahead and tried to see, what was the effect of different sizes of discounts on the quantity ordered. And what we saw was interesting. At the 5% level, there's a noticeable effect on the quantity ordered. The y-axis here is measured in Cohen's D. So basically, the larger the Cohen's D, the more of an effect that the discount had on the quantity of items purchased. Interestingly enough, we noticed that a 10% discount seemed to have a comparatively lower effect than the 5% discount. I think that might be a function of just the products on which the discount was offered or something. And maybe those are just the kinds of products that people are likely to buy more of in quantity. But we saw the effect size sort of bounce back as we went to higher and higher levels of discount. So, as the discount gets bigger, people are more tempted to now buy even more expensive products more often. But overall, the effect was, as I said, was kind of small. So then the next question that we ask ourselves is, and it's kind of sort of, the more important question, which is, did the discount level lead to higher revenue? Right? Because as a business, the whole point of offering a discount is because we're trying to make more money. I mean, for that matter, every decision that we make as a a business is motivated ultimately by our desire to, increase our revenue and hopefully our profits. So I wanted to see whether, so maybe offering a discount leads to people buying more products, but does that generate more revenue? Are we collecting more cash because people are buying more of the product, albeit at a discount price, but they end up spending more? And what I found was, it turns out that discounts were not really increasing revenue. The difference in average revenue from discounted versus regularly priced orders is $44. On average, we saw, I believe that on discounted orders, on average, like the order total for an order on which a discount had been applied was around 610, and the average total on orders on which no discount had been offered was about like 500 and I want to say 60, 570. Yeah, that works out. So 610 versus 560, it's not really that much. It's 44%. And I mean, it on the surface it looks like, there's some difference in means, but again, as when it comes to statistical analysis, the question that we're always asking ourselves is, yes, we've observed a difference, but is that difference statistically significant? I.e., could that result have been the product of random chance? I mean, it's entirely possible that the orders in which we apply discounts just happen to be higher, just as a function of randomness, right? Orders when we collect samples from populations, we pull different amounts. It's just it's inherent to the nature of randomness. And the whole point of statistical significance is to see, what are the odds that we would observe a difference of that magnitude if we were randomly pulling samples. And the difference of $44 is not statistically significant, which means that there's too much of a probability that it could have been just the result of a random chance for us to, affirm that offering a discount really was leading us to collect higher revenue. So even if offering discounts was leading to more revenue, the effect was not large enough to be statistically significant. So the other question that I thought I would take a look at was, do some employees have better sales skills? When I'm looking at the data set for Northwind traders, I'm wondering, do employees have any any way that they can influence how much they sell, or just employees sort of just sitting at a phone bank and whoever happens to pick up the phone takes the order? Or is there some level of agency involved? Is there anything that they can do to sort of increase their sales? So to answer that question, this is a chart here. The metric that I used to evaluate, to quantify the notion of sales skills, was revenue per order. So basically what that metric is looking at is, if let's say Robert King, he processed 500 orders per order on average, how much was the value of the goods that he sold, or how much did he end up collecting for the goods he sold? And the idea is that, by using that metric, we're sort of accounting for the fact that, employees, they have varying employment duration. Some people have been working there for 6 months. Some have been working there for a couple of years. Work hours, some people work part-time, some people work full-time, some people put in overtime. So if we looked at just like the absolute values of the revenue that they were collecting, that would not at all be, a good sort of reliable metric for us to look at, because it's not factoring all those things in. But when we just look at, okay, per order, I mean, you can deal with 3 customers and have 3 orders placed, or 300, but like per order, how much are you on average collecting in terms of revenue? And I thought that was a robust metric in order to evaluate sales skills. And so, yeah, as you see on the chart on the left, some employees did seem to have higher average revenue per order. There's no drastic outliers, but there's definitely a progression. You see that Michael Suyama, he's kind of below. The overall range is between like around 450 to 750 in terms of the lowest and the highest average revenue per order. But there is a progression. So then the question becomes, again, as with all statistical analysis, we have to ask ourselves, is this variation in revenue per order something that could have been just the result of random chance, where some employees happened to get lucky and customers came to them who were big spenders, or can we say that there has to be something about this employee that leads to them being more productive or gathering more revenue? And to answer that, we have to ask, well, what are the odds that, let's say, for example, Robert King, who is our highest selling employee, what are the odds that an employee could have collected as much revenue per order as Robert King, just due to random chance, right? Like if the reality is that, well, all employees sell about the same per order, if that was that's what we would call our null hypothesis. And if that is our null hypothesis, and our alternative hypothesis would be, no, Robert King sells more than the average person. And so to assess that, we ran a bunch of statistical tests. I ran something called a Welch's t-test, a student's t-test, and also I ran it through a Monte Carlo simulation. And I concluded that yes, Robert King's higher sales revenue is attributable to something other than random chance. I mean, the probability that his higher revenues could have been the result of just random chance is around 2.5%, which is really low, and it's below the accepted threshold of 5%. For us to now state that no, that difference is significant, and there has to be something he's doing that places him over and above the other employees. But that leads us to an interesting question. So even if, let's say, Robert King is in fact, the Dale Earnhardt of sales, and he's really good at selling luxury food items, maybe there's something else that can account for his increased revenue per order other than his own sales. What if he just happens to have been working, with customers from a specific region? What if he just gets assigned all the big customers in France or something? And what if he's selling more in some regions than others? Well, that could still, of course, be sort of a marker of his astute sales acumen. It depends on whether or not he's assigned customers, or if he has some agency in being able to pick them. Because if he's picking customers, then even if he's picking customers from certain regions, clearly he has an idea of who the big spenders are, and as a salesperson, he knows where to target his efforts to where he's going to get the most return for his time. But anyways, just to sort of get a clearer picture on whether there could be something else other than sales ability, I decided, well, let's look at let's look at the employee sales by region. Let's look at the distribution of each employee's customers and see if some employees are selling more in some regions than others. And the distributions of the employee sales by region, they seem similarly distributed. So if you look at these charts, each one of these bar charts is for one employee, and on the x-axis here we have the regions, and on the y-axis is the number of orders that were placed from those regions with that employee. And you can see just right off the bat that the shapes are very, very similar. You see that North America generally tends to, a lot of customers tend to be from there, and they tend to place a lot of orders. Same with Western Europe. On the other hand, Central America, not so much. Eastern Europe, not so much. So, just looking at these charts, it seems that, the customers are sort of evenly spread out regionally for each employee. So that kind of gives us more confidence in our previous conclusion that, Robert King really is a good salesperson, and he's able to generate more revenue, perhaps by, his sales skills and selling more products to customers and so on. So the last thing that I decided to look at was, let's see. I was just curious to see if buying preferences varied by region, and I wanted to see if some customers from some regions preferred to buy local products versus buying imported products, imported for them, obviously. So what we would do is we would compare for each product that they bought, the origin of that product, or the region from which it came, compare that to the region that the customer was from, and if they were equal, we would assume that we would call that a local purchase, and if they weren't, it would be an imported purchase. So, and if we know this, we can sort of calibrate our sales strategy, because we can sort of, let's say we realize that a given customer base from a certain region prefers local products. We can sort of focus our sales efforts down the line on offering them local products and maybe giving them discounts or incentives, or just generally stocking local products more than others. Or maybe discounting imported products for them to sort of increase their consumption of them. There's a number of things we can do with that information strategically. So to find out, what we did was we counted the purchases of local products by customers in a given region. We counted the purchases of local products by all other customers, right, local to them, of course. Then we compute the probability of observing a count of local products as high or as low as that of a particular customer, given the average for the remaining population. So if the average, rate of buying local products for everybody else except for the people in North America is 0.6, then what are the odds that, we would observe a ratio of local purchases of 0.8 in North America, for example? So the results of that came out like this. This is a bar chart. It sort of shows you the sort of the size of how much they prefer local versus imported. If the bar is extending to the right, that means that customers from that region prefer to buy imported products, and if the bar is extending to the left, that means that the customers prefer to buy local products. And the bigger the bar, that means the more they prefer local versus imported. So we see that the British Isles, Central America, and South America seems to love imports, and that kind of makes sense because and then we have North America and Western Europe, and they seem to prefer local products. And that makes sense because you generally consider North America and Western Europe are popular points of origin for luxury food items. Off the top of my head, every fancy food I can think of seems to come from Europe, like Parmesan cheese or caviar or French wine, or and North America has a huge domestic food market. There's California wines and cheeses from Wisconsin, and it's generally a large state with a sort of advanced economy, so it can sort of manufacture higher end products, higher quality products. So it kind of makes sense that consumers in North America would prefer to buy locally, and the same with Western Europe. And then if you look at the British Isles and Central South America, it makes sense that they would like imports, right? I mean, Britain is a tiny country, and historically has been reliant heavily on imports. I mean, they don't really grow much domestically. They don't really have a big domestic food market. And Central America, South America, they're developing economies, and it makes sense that they would kind of want to get higher quality imported goods. So that was my presentation. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see you again soon. Bye.